Today we are hosting our first webinar. Let me just say, for me, it's my second webinar for the Continental Development Ignition, ERC, with the goal of harnessing Africa's vast agricultural potential to find high quality education and the healthcare in rural areas throughout the continent. So tonight we'll be looking or discussing or a panel dialogue to enhance solution in development and economic growth in rural areas. When you speak about rural areas, you are speaking about remote areas where there is less infrastructure, less development, poor education system, less entrepreneurship skills, less physical infrastructure, like I said, agriculture, etc., and health. Tonight, I want us to debate and open up and come up with ideas and come up with opinions that at the end of the night there will be one how CDI Pan-African is going to harness in every rural area that we shall embark on to start on a mission. So being a member of Continental Development Ignition is so amazing. So I open this webinar to welcome you all. Feel free. And all ideas, all key aspects for boosting rural economics for sustainable development shall be noted down. At this moment, I would like to welcome Mr. Joseph on board. Thank you, Mr. K, for clarifying the mandatory and the objective mission behind CDI Pan-African. Let me welcome Mr. Victor Otiono from Kenya for joining us. Victor, you are welcome. That was indeed a great insight for opening up and giving us more information and clarifying what effective leaders consultant is all about. What I can say is Africa is a rich state. Personally, I call Africa a state because we are one and we are brothers and sisters. Indeed, we are brothers and we are Pan-African. Africa is rich. Africa is everything. It is only that we Africans, I don't know, and you'll forgive me, I usually tell people that we have got this spirit of being reluctant and this spirit of relying on another man. We've got a lot of minerals, a lot of resources that they've been taken away from us, and they're turning to raw materials that we buy them at the end of the day. While we could have used our soils, while we could have used our best to produce. For example, we still have a problem in Africa, especially in remote countries in my area. Mr. Billy can contend to that and agree with me that we still have people who are going through hunger. But how are we going to emancipate that? How are we going to deal with such issues? We still have people, we lack good health facilities. How and when are we going to start? But tonight, this is a great topic, development and economic growth in rural areas. So, my dear leaders, like Mr. K has been saying, agriculture, education, health, they all play an important role in developing rural regions. Rural development is also characterized by its emphasis on locally produced economic development strategies. So, in other ways, we as Africans, we need to empower and emphasize on locally produced economical development. But how do we do that for sustainable development of Africa? So I'm going to open the floor for each and every one of us. And this is how I want us to dilute this topic, development and economic growth in rural area. When I call your name, you better first introduce yourself so that it will be easier for us to know each other better. So we won't be raising hands. I'll be calling your name. Each and every speaker will be participating so that we may not delay each other for this wonderful evening. So I'll start with my leader, Mr. Billy.
I've just joined the group today and you are starting with me. Well, thank you so much, Naomi. And hello, colleagues. I think I was introduced to the subject earlier today by Mr. Kalinda, and I read quite a bit about it. what I agree with is that I want to take you to the story of Botswana when it started. Our first president, Seretse Khama, insisted that the first diamond mine was founded in 1972, just 6 years after independence. When he opened the mine, he insisted that the mines should avoid paying people more than what a peasant farmer was earning at their farms. And there was very little rural-urban migration until businesses in towns and the mines started paying more and more and more. And the people in the rural areas did not find farming lucrative enough. They started migrating into towns, looking for jobs in offices as cashiers and everything else, leaving their land unutilized, farming land unutilized. I mean, in Botswana, you don't buy farming land, you are just allocated a plot to go farm. So most of the farmland is unutilized. I haven't done research on it, but now I have to try and do research to find out how much of farming land is actually unutilized. And we're both pastoral farmers. I mean, there was a lot of, like Naomi said, everybody owned a couple of cattle. And then we are also farming crops, grain crops. Recently, in trying to boost farming, the government banned import of vegetables into Botswana so that people could start farming, doing horticultural farming. It's picking up quite a lot, but the main thing is that it is still the people in towns who are farming in areas around towns. They are not in the villages. So I think if with certain initiatives, if we can go into the villages to ensure that people actually move out of towns, to go to the villages to work there, to work their land there, because it's cheaper. The towns will be less crowded, and there'll be supply all over the country. So this is a very good initiative, and I'm very, very interested in working with you, Joseph, and others in trying to economically emancipate our villages. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Billy, for such a powerful deliberation indeed. It's very true, especially in our state, Botswana. Like Mr. Billy has just mentioned, it's just a really, really pouring, affecting issue whereby we lack vegetables, something that we could start. I remember one of the good days when I was at school, when the government started with its initiative that we should have backyard gardens. One of my uncles says, no, you can realize that we Africans, we are lazy when now the government starts to think on our behalf that I'll give you this, then we have a back garden. At a certain period, you are on your own. There is no further training. But let me just say, now here is CDI Pan-African partnering with Pan-African ELC, and it coming with the broad aspects of developing rural areas. It coming with means and implementation. We need such initiative whereby there is training, there are group gathering, and like Mr. Billy has been saying, people are gathered in cities, whereby cities are crowded with a broad, beautiful buildings, tall buildings, infrastructure, while we left our rich soils back in the village. You see, we need to have the right mindset. Like in my country right now, they introduced the change of mindset slogan. So sometimes it starts with our mind, then we empower each other. So at that moment, I'll call on Mr. Phineas. You introduce yourself so that we may know you, and you give us your points concerning our topic today. The floor is open, Mr. Phineas. Okay, no problem. Mr. Victor Otieno from Kenya, the floor is open. Okay, Mr. Yakubu, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Naomi, I'm here.
Okay, Victor, go.
Who should go first now?
Okay, Victor, you can take over.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm so happy that we have this topic today. So my name is Victor Otieno. I'm from Kenya. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm also a computer scientist. I really love Africa beyond my profession. So when it comes to economy, I really have to have a very, very massive contribution on it. So first, I really thank the organizer of the session today, specifically on the rural development, economic development, which I feel like is very, very vital, especially when we are talking about Africa. And the first thing I will always say that Africa is not one because we have a lot of differences, but also Africa is one because we are the same people, only that we have a lot of differences. But it's not one in terms of geographical mapping that people always tend to create in our imaginary thoughts. So when it comes to rural economy, we have to acknowledge very well that by 2050 we will have over 800 million new people workforce into the market, and we cannot talk of rural development if you're going to ignore the pattern into which urbanization itself is taking place in Africa, which means more people are moving to the urban areas. But to realize that the urban areas they are moving into are our primary cities, primary towns, yeah, of which there is no any strategic way of which they are like developing rural areas to be able to urbanize itself and have necessary resources to sustain itself. And when we talk of sustainability, we really don't focus on funding as a much, but we focus on creating right labor productivity. When we talk of labor productivity, Africa has got, let me say, for the last four decades, yeah, let me say that way, Africa has undergone through series of metamorphoses and changes that are very, very different. Actually, we look from the manufacturing, like more of extractive from the extractive part of it, and now you see that more of Africa is more of service. We are doing services more than agriculture. Let me say bit of more than agriculture, which means even if you can look at the how things are going, people are into more services than agriculture. Yeah, but this is more of not really balancing well, because we're not going to be continuing to focus on services and all this extraction work that you're also doing. You see that much is being done, yes, but much is not really contributing to employment. But on agriculture, yes, we can agree that there's employment really coming out in the agriculture sector, but mostly in the continent, we can say 40% of our population are in agriculture. But if they're in agriculture, most are just small scale. The produce is not really reflected well in the market standard. That's why you get that we have over 40% in the agriculture. But what translates to the economy in terms of the continent from the agriculture is even less than 20%. So